Hi, my name is Neus, but I'm better known as Miss Meissa. I am a lettering artist and illustrator from Barcelona, and I love sharing what I do in workshops. So I'm thrilled to be part of this summer workshop retreat. And today I'm going to show you how to make this tropical lettering composition. You will need a pencil and an eraser, paper, preferably smooth watercolor or mixed media, and brush pens or markers. I'm going to use Tombow, but you can use any other brand of water-based markers. And I will use pinks and greens and also yellow. I'm going to use also a water brush, although a normal brush and water will work just as well. And I'm going to use also a gel pen for details, but this is optional. Well, let's go. I'm going to start by calculating 4 points in the central area of the paper, and I will join them to draw a diamond shape, and that's where my lettering will go. I do it with the help of a ruler, but you can also do it freehand if you prefer. For me, it's easier this way, but as you like. And if you don't have a ruler, you can also use a marker or the edge of a piece of paper. Once I have the diamond shape, I'm going to draw some lines to mark where my lettering will go. I draw the baseline of the word summer in the center because it will be a little bigger, and the X height, well in this case the cap's height, a few centimeters higher. I also draw the baseline in the word vibes, leaving a similar space, and finally the top line, leaving a little margin. Now I'm going to sketch my lettering. First the word summer in capital letters, and then the word vibes in script. If you prefer, you can letter them directly with the brush pens, but I like to sketch it first to make sure everything is where I want it to be. I'm doing it in a style something like groovy, maybe, but you can use the style of capital letters that you like the most. And if you prefer, you can paint them directly with the brush pens, but I like to sketch it first to make sure everything is where I want it to be. You can also do it on a separate paper and trace it later with a light pad or light box, or also on a window, or you can even use tracing paper to center the elements. I may be speeding up a little bit some parts of the video because I'm very slow at drawing, as you can see, and I want to show you more things in the workshop, so maybe I will speed it up a little, but you take as much time as you need because, well, we are doing the sketch and this is going to be the base for the drawing, so just take your time. And as you see, I'm erasing some parts of the diamond shape that I'm not going to need so I can see it more properly. Just finishing this last letter, and as you can see, I'm using my eraser every time I need it, so just do the same. Just take your time, as I was saying, to make this word as you like it. I'm starting the second word. In this case, it will be in the script style. In fact, it will be practically in calligraphy, but I sketch it a little so I'm sure it is centered and to see more or less how I like the widths of the letters. Again, if you don't want to complicate it, you can skip this step and letter it directly with the brush pen base color. I'm finishing sketching the last letters and we'll move on to drawing the leaves and tropical flowers. For that, the first thing I'm going to do is to distribute all the elements that I'm going to draw around the diamond shape. This way I make sure I have a balanced composition before drawing all the details. I'm drawing rough shapes that will later be my leaves and flowers. The first shape I've made is for a banana leaf, and this circle will become an hibiscus flower. Here I will place a palm leaf and I will leave a little room for a flower in here, and I go to the next corner where I will put a monstera. So I'm drawing roughly the shape, a little bit bigger maybe. The most important thing to make a composition with leaves and flowers is that if you have several elements, you distribute them well. That way you create contrast and visual rhythm. I'm going to draw another monstera down here, quite separate from the previous one. and the banana leaf, which looks a little bit similar. And in between this one and the palm leaf in the corner, I will place another flower. I am placing another banana leaf almost at the opposite end of the other one, and I will put another palm to separate it from the monstera in here. You can see this is very rough, and in between of these leaves there will be another flower, and also in this free space, a little bit separate of the diamond shape, there will be another one. I'm making some little modifications to balance the composition a bit, just changing a little bit the sizes of some leaves, and that's it. Let's draw the leaves. First, the banana leaf. You have to make this elongated shape, rounded at the bottom and ending in a beak at the top. We draw the central line and some small notches and lines on the sides. Make sure they are spread out, but don't worry too much. Another one in here. And erase the part that is left over. And you have it. I'm going to draw another one in here so you can watch it again. First, the elongated shape ending in a peak, then the central line, and the lines and notches on both sides of the leaf. We finish drawing them, erase the lines that are no longer valid, and we have it. And now I'm going to show you how to draw a monstera. It's similar, but the initial shape is a kind of like an inverted heart, but a little bit more elongated, just like this. And with the stem coming out, also the center line, and the notches on the sides that in this case are bigger, just around the leaf, like this. And also some lines in the center and some small holes. And we erase the part of the drawing that's left over, like this. Also this part that I just draw to show you. You don't even need to draw this. I will draw the other monstera so you can see it again. I start with the inverted heart shape, a little more elongated, the central line, and also the notches at the sides. I'm going to change this one a little bit. I make the distances between notches more or less similar, but not exactly. And also some holes and little lines. And this is it. And now I'm going to draw these palm leaves. The shape is like that of the monstera, but it will only serve as a reference. We draw the central line, that will be the stem. And from here, we will draw elongated leaves to fill the whole shape on both sides of the central line and changing a little the direction in this way. We draw them around the whole shape, like this, and leave free the part of the sphere that will be the flower. Okay. Let's do it again with this one, the central line. I'm changing it a little bit to make it bigger. And yeah, the central line. I'm trying to avoid the lines to touch the corners, the exact corners of the diamond, just a little bit. And well, just drawing the long leaves as we did before. This is going to be on the banana leaf, so I draw it all over it. And the last one, just the same. I start from the center and I will be drawing all the leaves, and they are going to be over the other leaves, so I draw them all. And I erase the part I don't want, so it's not in the drawing, just like this. This eraser is very practical for this kind of things because being so thin, it is very easy to erase small parts. It is from Tombow, although I don't know if there are also other brands. And now it only remains to draw the flowers. I'm going to start with a hibiscus flower, and to do it you just have to divide the sphere into 5 parts like this. They don't have to be perfect, just more or less. And now I use these parts to draw the petals, just following the lines. I add the pistil coming out of the center and some details. And that's it. Let's do it again with this one. I will erase all the part of the leaf that I don't want. I look for the center and I divide in 5 parts the sphere. Now I join all these parts with the center, and this is going to be the guide for my petals. Make them a little rough on the outside, just like the flowers really are. It will be like this. I erase this part that it's not needed, and I add the pistil and some details. In these 2 remaining spheres, I'm going to draw plumerias. I start the same way as with the hibiscus, dividing the sphere in 5 parts, just like this, and joining them at the center. And now I'm going to draw the petals, and what I'm going to do is half an arc, about half of the petal, and I'll move on to the next one until I have them all. I erase what's left over to get a good look and redraw it if it's needed, just like this. And I'm drawing it a little dark so you can see it, but try to make it as light as possible. And I add the folded part that is characteristic of these flowers. And we repeat with this one. I'm redrawing the sphere and I divide it in 5 parts. Yeah, more or less. The center, and now I'm going to draw the half arcs, forming the petals, just like this. It's kind of like a sheep's blade, but with all the parts closer together, you see. And now I'm going to draw the folded part also, like I did in the other one. And just like this. I erase all the remaining parts of the sphere, and we have our drawing finished. If your drawing is very marked, you can erase it a little so it doesn't show so much. Or you can trace it on another paper, as I have done, because I have pressed more than normal so you could see it. But before we start painting it, let's test the colors on a separate piece of paper, and I'll show you how to blend them. I start with a very light pink for the base of the word summer, this one. And I'm going to paint over it with the darker one. Then I take an intermediate pink and I'm going to drag the darker pigment to blend it. And the same thing now with the lighter pink, just like this. I will do the same with the greens, starting with this very light blue. I could do it with a light green, but I like the tone of the blend better with the blue. So I paint with the darker and I drag the color with the intermediate green. And now I drag this other pigment with the light blue. And it gets all blend. I'm also using this other kind of green for the palm leaf. And I will also use yellow for the plumeria and some details. And also for the shadows. Mostly this brighter one. And with the colors test, we can start. I'm going to paint the base of the letter first with the lighter color. Don't worry too much if the strokes overlap, because we'll work on the color when we do the blending. This is just the first layer, so don't worry. Take as much time as you need and try to get the shape of the letters right. Just relax and enjoy the tip sliding on the paper and the color and the letters. Enjoy the process and the creation. And keep forming your letters like this. I'm covering my lettering with a piece of paper so as not to smudge it. I try to do it all the time, even though I often don't remember, but if I remember, I do it. And as you can see, I'm already blending as I show you, carefully dragging the color with the lighter brush pen. I usually start with the darkest color at the bottom of the letters and drag that pigment upwards. I like the lighter part of the blending to be on top if there is any, and the darker part on the bottom, because it gives me a more natural feeling of light and shadow. And just dragging the color, and I have my first letter and I'm starting the second one with the darker pink that I'm going to blend with the other two colors. And I always take my time with the blending. As I was saying with the drawing, I'm quite slow and I like to paint in a very relaxed way and dragging the pigment very little by little, working each line until I like the way it is. For that, each person has their own taste and you can do it faster if you prefer, but I invite you to try to do it calmly and without thinking about anything, but adding and dragging pigment because it is super relaxing. And I don't know about you, but it's great for me to relax when I do this kind of thing. Other than that, try to paint uneven strokes and make the color changes at about the same height on the letters, but not exactly. This way you will see a much smoother blending. You can see that I'm not painting exactly the same strokes and I'm just in the similar area and I drag it in a very uneven way. And just like this you get really smoother blends. So that's why I do it in this way. Just dragging the color until I like how it is. Sometimes you have to work a little bit on the paper, on the pigment of the darker color. Try not to damage the paper, but you can, if you have a good paper, a mixed media paper, a watercolor paper, you can drag it a bit, you can work a bit on it. So don't be too worried about that and be careful, but work on the color as you need it. You could also use a water brush or a brush and water to do the blending, but I'm going to use that on the leaves and the flowers, and I want my letters to be a little bit darker, a little bit more colorful. So that's why I'm blending with only the color of the lighter marker. You could also use a blender if you prefer, but I like to do it in this way because in this way there's more pigment on the letters and the colors are stronger. And we are going to do the same with the second word. Now I'm doing kind of a calligraphy. As I told you before, it was not really necessary to do the sketch in this part, but I like it because now I know where I have to put my lines. And I'm going to do the same as I did with the other word, starting with the darker color and dragging the pigment with the intermediate color, and after that with the lighter one, just in very uneven strokes and in different parts of the letter. Just try to have a similar light part of the letter and a similar dark part of the letter in all the words, so it's balanced. And keep doing the same in the rest of the word and just taking your time. And as you can see, I'm working quite slowly on my word. You could also do this without the blending. You could do it in a solid color, but I think it's nice to show this possibility and to show you the way I do the blendings, or one of my ways, because there are different ways, but this one I really like it. I think it's a very smooth and light one, and it's nice to show you this way of blending in this workshop. Try to keep the shape of the letter, but you can also make some changes in the shape, perfecting the strokes. I always finish defining the shapes in this step. I like to see how the letters just come to life with the colors and the blends, and I just take my time and I relax, and I keep dragging pigment and enjoying it and trying to connect with myself and stopping my mind, just concentrating on what I'm doing in the colors, in the blends, in the paper, and just that. And I'm almost finishing this part, that may be the slower part of the workshop, and maybe you have already finished, or maybe you are still in the first word. That doesn't matter. You just take your time, and if you're doing this faster, just don't worry, because we are almost in the next step. And if you are doing this part more slowly, don't worry either, because you can just skip this part when we start the next step and do it later. There's no problem with this. So just take your time and don't worry about anything. Let's paint this last part of the S. And next step will be to paint the shadows to these words, so they pop up of the paper. And I'm going to paint them in yellow, not the regular gray, because I want a lot of color in this lettering, and I really like how this pink, this reddish pink, and also these greens combine with the yellow, with this bright yellow. So I'm doing it in this color, but you can also do a regular shadow with a gray color, a light gray, and just I'm doing it in the left part of the letters and in the bottom part of the letters, like if the light was coming from the upper left and projecting the light down to the right. And the only important thing when you do shadows, or the most important thing at least, is to maintain consistency, that all the letters cast the shadow in the same direction, and that the shadows are more or less similar, not some too thin and some too thick. And only with that your shadows are going to be consistent. So that's the thing you have to keep in mind, the two things you have to keep in mind. And for the flowers and leaves, I will add a little water to the brush pen's pigment. I'm going to start painting a part of the leaf, in this case the banana leaf, with just a little bit of the dark tone and a little more of the turquoise. Be careful with all the corners and all the shapes. And I'm adding a little bit more of color. Don't worry, because we are going to rework all this color with the water brush or with the normal brush, whatever you have. I add a little bit more of dark color and I blend it a bit with the turquoise, just like this, really uneven, and I'm just careful with the outlines of the letters, and now I'm adding some water to the fan. I'm doing it with a water brush, but it would be exactly the same with a regular brush. I'm just dragging the color as I did before, but with water that it's a little different thing. You will see. This is a bit like painting with watercolor, and like watercolor, it always has an unpredictable side. So run your brush over the color to move the pigment and try not to puddle it with too much water, just a little. And keep painting all the leaf. I add a little of water, even if the water brush it's supposed not to need it, but I'm just used to it with regular brushes, so I just like to do it this way. And now I'm going to paint this monstera. I begin also in the center with some dark green. You can use less dark green if you prefer. You can add just turquoise, but I'm going to have a darker leaf in here. And I'm going to add also a little bit of yellow, so it's a little bit different. And now I'm mixing it with my water brush and some water, just running over the pigment and dragging it, being careful with the outlines, and the colors are mixing and blending, and that's kind of cool. I hope you like this way of working with the brush pens. That's not the most common maybe, but that's cool. And don't worry if you don't like some of the effects of the paint with the water, because we can paint over it once it dries. Now I'm going to do the same with the monstera at the bottom, but this time I'm going to use only the turquoise. I'm not going to use the dark green. I'm doing it a little bit lighter, so I'm just making some strokes and some outlines and dragging the pigment with the water brush, just in a very light way in this case. It's going to be a lot of this leaf, it's going to be overlapped with the flowers, so just a little bit, taking some pigment from here to add to the other leaf, and it will be okay. A bit more. Yeah. And now I'm going to paint this other one also with the turquoise and a little bit more. And I'm adding a bit of yellow also, a bit more. And now I'm going to mix it with some water. As I said, I'm using more water with the water brush, but it's not supposed to be needed. I just like it more like in this way, because I control more the water than pressing the water brush to drop water. But if you are used to water brushes or prefer to work in a different way, the only thing that is important is that there's no too much water, so it doesn't puddle. And now we are going to paint the palm leaves, and this is going to be easy because we are going to paint them directly with the brush pen. This color is not very pigmented, so there is no need to water brush it. Although you can do it if you prefer, painting with the marker in the central part and dragging the pigment to the tips with the brush or the water brush. But I like it like this, just with the just with the brush pen. A bit more in the center. I'm being careful here because it's going to be a flower. And yeah, I'm going for the second one. Starting in the center and painting all the long leaves of this palm. Be careful not to paint over the flower that will go on top of it. And I'm going to paint also the long leaves at the other side, trying to make the tips more or less narrow, and also avoiding the other outlines and the shape of the diamond. And the third palm leaf, just the same as the other two that we did before. And as soon as this leaf is finished, we only have to paint the flowers and some final details. But let's finish this first. Just a couple of leaves more and done. Now I'm painting the hibiscus flower, and I'm going to start by painting in the center of the flower with the darker color of pink that I've used at the bottom of the letters, and I'll drag it a bit with the middle pink. And now I will add some water and I will run over the pigment and I will drag it. I just want the flowers to be really smooth at the end of the petals, so I'm using a bit of water and dragging the pigment to the outlines of this flower. And you can already see the effect. It's quite cool. And now with the second hibiscus, we're going to do exactly the same. Don't worry if the petals are a little too close together, because we will separate them later with the details. So just paint the whole surface, trying to make the outer part lighter and a little bit faded, and don't worry too much. And be careful not to smudge the other colors. I'm just dragging the color a little bit more. And if you have any smudge or you have too much water, you can always dry it like this with a paper towel and keep painting. This is okay for me. So now I'm going to paint the plumeria, and I'm going to do more or less the same. Just paint with the brighter yellow in the center of the flower, and then I will drag it with the water brush and with some water, so all the flower is painted, but with a lighter color at the outer part. A little bit more of water, and I'm going to paint the other one just the same. And this is kind of a fun part because it's kind of just dragging colors with water and see what happens. And this is done also. And I'm going to draw the shape, the diamond shape. I'm going to use a ruler because it's going to be easier for me, but just you can do it freehand if you prefer, no problem. I just like the straight lines that you can get easily with the ruler, so here it is. And be careful not to smudge the colors, or if your illustration is a little bit wet, just wait until it's totally dried, or be really careful because it will be a pity that you smudge something at this point. So just be really, really careful right now. Okay, I'm going to do little corrections now freehand without the roller. I'm going to complete some parts and just just add a little bit more of color and trying to not to have white and holes, just a little bit like this. And this is starting to look a little bit finished. It's not finished yet, but it's starting to look like it. Now I'm going to paint the pistils with a darker color, or if you have a maroon color, because this is quite similar to the one I've used, so maybe I will try it with a darker color later, but for the moment I like this one for the details. I'm going to add some more details with this dark pink, with the also with the second pink I used, like in the middle part of the letters, and I'm adding just lines or strokes to create a little bit of the texture in these petals. And now with the lighter color, I'm also finishing some parts and blending a bit the darker color and just adding some texture in all this part of the flowers. A bit more here. It's just as you see it. And also a little bit more here. I think it's okay. And I'm going to do something similar with the darker yellow, just adding a little bit more of pigment in the center of the flowers, even more. And now I'm going to blend it with the water brush, so it's smoother. Let's see, a little bit, just in here. So it has also more texture. And this will be it. And now I'm adding the details to the leaves, better with this darker color. You could also use the brush tip, but I'm using this one, the regular one, just to draw some lines and some details in these leaves. And I will also paint a little bit of the lips, but with the lighter color, with this one, the middle one, and I'm adding a little bit more of pigment here and there, and also outlining a little bit more the letters, and just adding some color wherever you think it's going to be better. Just don't overdo it either. Just a little bit in here and there. It's going to be nice. Some shadows. Just paint, and also if there's some part of your leaves that you don't like, paint over it. And for the final details, I'm going to use a gel pen in white. In this case, the Uniball Signo Broad. And I'm going to paint some lights on the letters in the upper left part. If you have placed the shadows as I have done it, and if you have placed the shadows in a different way, just make it coherent, because if you have the shadows in one side, you should have the lights in the opposite side, so just that, make it coherent. And now I'm adding also some details in the flowers with the pen, some little strokes, and also the folded part of the plumeria. I'm going to paint it a little bit in white, some small details also. And in here, in the hibiscus flower, some lights also. These small details are going to make a difference. So if you have a white pen, just use it like me. Here, a little bit, just a little, just some detail. I'm painting a little bit more in here. Now I'm just finishing it, just looking where I can add something and just doing it, but don't overdo it either, just a little bit. And I think I'm going to add a little bit of a darker color in the center of the hibiscus, but I'm adding some details, some more white details before. And I'm also painting a little bit more this leaf. I'm correcting this shadow that it was a little bit smudged. And now for the final detail with a little bit of maroon. If you don't have maroon, you can use the middle green, because when mixed with the pink, it will be a dark color similar to this one. The last strokes, and we have it. So here is my finished composition with all the last details. I will love to see yours, so if you share it, please tag me so I can see it. And if you want more workshops and freebies from me, you can sign up for my newsletter. You will find the link in my profile or in my website. Thank you so much for showing up to the summer workshop retreat, and keep enjoying this amazing experience. Bye!